Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your attendance to today's presentation. My name is Moretti Goodson, and I am a communications specialist for the Richmond County School System. Today, I will be discussing how public relations theory is applied to practice. By bridging academic research and analyzing professional challenges and opportunities for the school district, communications professionals like myself will be able to better reach the Richmond County School System's objectives. For today's agenda, there are 10 areas that I will be discussing in detail. Each area will provide main points to consider and support research, as well as recommendations to apply public relations to communications roles for the school system. The information will be followed by a recap of the presentation and references to the academic research. The historical theoretical perspective is a compilation of understanding the history of public relations. As you can imagine, there has been a tremendous growth in how humans communicate. We start at the dawn of the ages, where most forms of communications were through drawings of hands and animals on the wall. Now, we are in the current age of digital media, in which we now utilize our smartphones for nearly everything and practically live in this virtual reality realm on a daily basis. Regardless of the way we communicate, there is one thing that has remained consistent: themes or purposes for why we communicate. According to Layman Russell, when analyzing the field of public relations, it typically falls under 5 categories: religion, education, nonprofit and advocacy, politics, and business matters. Public relations has always been a part of education, so it is essential that we understand the history of the field in order to better develop methods to reach our targeted audience. For the school system specifically, we want to make sure we are reaching our students, employees, and local community partners. Of all evolutions, the most important one is found within the 16th century. This is when written communication became an important phenomenon. It started with the Protestant Reformation, which further evolved into written messages. The approach was then adopted for propaganda to spread Catholicism. Ever since the 16th century, writing has become a vital part of public relations and is one of the key ways we, communications professionals, are able to communicate. However, it is imperative to remember that public relations is not just about how we communicate, but the results that we get from it. As Layman Russell stated, in order to measure the effectiveness, one must analyze the engagement and the success of each portion or area targeted. Now, I have 2 recommendations for the school system. The first focuses on analyzing the written communication that we put out. As I mentioned before, written communication was a pivotal moment in our history because it changed the way we understood things. Focusing the school system's messages to deliver the right meaning and target the right people may take a little more reviewing on our end. Secondly, to make sure that the public is perceiving our messages correctly, we have to monitor engagement. This can be done by observing analytics of different social media platforms or conducting a survey for people to respond. If people are sharing, liking, and commenting our content, it is safe to say that we have enticed the audience to engage, which can further get us closer to our organization's goals. To simply put it, open systems theory is the concept that organizations are influenced by their environment. The theory has been applied to various organizations and has made an impact, a huge impact, especially for education systems. As with all other organizations, methods, and systems, there is a process that can be followed to get a better focal point for organizations to analyze. Public relations scholar Broom discussed the step-by-step process of how to create a theory from a particular concept. The process is found on the right side of the slide, starting from the bottom, which is where you select the concept of interest, and lastly at the top, where one can build a set theory around focal points. The field of public relations is constantly evolving, as we have captured from the historical timeline. Further, this means that public relations theory is an ongoing process. Since public relations is always changing, public relations theory will continually have adaptations. Along with adjustments in the theory, we cannot forget the importance of fostering relationships. While a step-by-step process is easy, public relations theory is complex. Meeting new people, whether he or she is an important figure in our local community or just an innocent student, their opinions of our organization matters. and we have to assure ourselves we are tailoring our messages to them correctly. For the school system, it's vital in understanding what our stakeholders need from us and allows us to make better adaptations for excellence. My recommendations for the school system is to adopt the step-by-step process of creating a public relations theory suited for us, but to make adjustments where necessary from the information we receive from our stakeholders. I chose this photo because it is an image of one of our students dancing with their arms extended open. I use this as a reminder that we must be accepting to change, open to adaptations, and managing our relationships that we make on behalf of Richmond County. For most of us, it is easy to understand how persuasion and listening are important to an organization. For the school system, it is imperative because it provides insight to the leadership team to help them make decisions that are beneficial for the students, staff, and community members. During my research, I came across 3 main points when analyzing persuasion and listening. First, organizational listening is essential to construct the right messages. Once you listen to the stakeholders, understanding the history of persuasion will help you better convey your messages. Porter emphasizes the importance of understanding the history behind persuasion, acknowledging Plato's ideologies of rhetoric, which support the connotation that persuasion is not necessarily just a communication tactic, but also a way of falsifying information to the public. Further, leading into my third point of public communications, being a transactional process requiring both parties to either listen or receive in a communications process. To further support my notion of public communications as a transactional concept, I recommend that the school system use various forms of two-way communication methods. This includes social media and new platforms such as Let's Talk, geared to make the flow of information to and from our public more efficient. My second recommendation is to utilize data collecting methods to listen to our audience even better. Whether it is an online blog where people are able to comment or anonymous surveys available at the end of each month, we need to do a better job at hearing what our students, employees, and community partners want. Social media has been a bustling form of technology for the last decade. It has advanced so much that there are platforms readily available to share content, network with professionals and friends, or share photos and ideas. As with all other technological advancements, there are pros and cons to using social media. For organizations like our school system, social media platforms have become one of the primary ways to communicate with our publics and engage with our community. As a communication specialist, I find myself reposting content from our followers that supports our school system's mission, and even use certain platforms to communicate event reminders or alleviate crisis circumstances. Social media has changed our world so much that it has completely disrupted the traditional flow for campaigns. Traditionally, news media was the biggest medium of releasing information about politics, campaigns, etc. However, now organizations, politicians, and even customers have the ability to freely discuss the topics of their interests and desires and share their perceptions on different events. Unfortunately, social media does have its setbacks, 2 of which include strategic uncertainty and communication structure. With so much information widely available to anyone in the world, it's more difficult to filter out what is true or false. This can cause misconstrued perceptions of organizations. Also, there is no formula to how social media works. There is no solidified process of how to use it, so figuring out how an organization can use it to their advantage and how to use it well may take a little while. The most important things to take away from social media is to really learn the ins and outs of how it can help an organization. For the school system, we must focus in on the sites that benefits us. For example, platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Snapchat are popular amongst the Augusta community. Through those networks, it will be easier to interact with our stakeholders about upcoming jobs, professional developments, announcements, and share astounding innovations and achievements. Secondly, social media has its downfalls, but it's up to us to understand our advantages. The Richmond County School System is in the heart of a community that cares about its people. By interacting with them through these channels, we have a better chance of gaining partnerships, better reputation, and overall support from everyone. In Weston's and Barr's explanation of corporate political advocacy, they mention three main requirements before considering whether or not the actions of a company aligns with CPA. This includes being beyond the company's immediate economic interests, its disconnection from the core business of the company, and outside political channels. Another essential point to understanding crisis and corporate political advocacy is to understand whether or not an organization has integrity. Moreover, analyzing if a business is consistent with its views, authentic with its brand and stance on a variety of issues, and if the organization offers plausible reasoning behind their actions. A great example of this concept can be found by observing Dick's Sporting Goods' action after the Parkland school shooting. At some point, high authorities within the company made a decision to remove assault rifles from their stores because of the event. Of course, it did not please the population that supports purchases of certain weapons. Nevertheless, as a way to support that the company believes in more security for young students, regardless of the impact on profits or sales, they continue with their stance against the use of assault firearms for gun violence at school. As a school system, there will be many times in which we will have to stand up for something in support of our students, teachers, or community. Understanding when to support or stand down can be tricky. However, my best advice to the school system is to be authentic in whatever organization, political stance, or movement we decide to support. And regardless of the circumstances surrounding the school system, we must be holding a level of integrity in everything we do. Difficulties will come up, but what matters is how you address them, analyze to create solutions, and ultimately resolve them. Applying ethical practices and securing an organization's values can be one of the most tedious parts as a professional. Through my research about ethics and values, I came across a plethora of information regarding what each term means and how to apply it to promote an organization's success. Katie Place from Quinnipiac University conducted a research that exhibited how organizations fail to listen to their publics and lack a variety of methods to engage with stakeholders through dialogue. According to her research, 15% of the population is considered to be below the poverty line. Further, the discussion on how organizations must learn to value their low-income stakeholders and be mindful of their need for transparency, privacy, and empathy. This part resonated with me because the Richmond County school system has approximately 25% of its students below the poverty line. Do we ever think about how we are creating ways of engagement and moments for separate dialogue for them? The Public Relations Society of America does an amazing job at listing what is required to be considered ethical or have values. The list included advocacy, transparency, fairness, honesty, expertise, loyalty, and independence. This code of ethics perfectly coincides with the needs that our low-income publics need and still supports the needs of all other stakeholders. So what does this mean for us? Our school system has done a great job at advocating for others and sharing knowledge to the community about different matters. Now it's time to step it up a notch. Like all other organizations, sometimes it is very difficult to be transparent, especially if it can dim a light on areas of our organizations that we do not want to broadcast to the world. However, when we are transparent, we gain our stakeholders' trust, loyalty, open communication that forms honesty, and perception that we are being fair. Without it, we lack all of the aspects needed to be considered an ethically responsible school system. My best advice is to continue to promote transparency. Regardless of how uncomfortable it is, the results will far outweigh any negative commentary in the end. Secondly, enforcing ethical practices could be beneficial for everyone. We want our morale to grow as a school system, and the best way to do it can be by enforcing the importance of ethical practices. Corporate social responsibility is the concept that an organization must act in a way that is ultimately beneficial for society. It's taking a closer look at the actions and behaviors of a business and seeing where it fits with the community. People can be cynical, so making sure that an organization is acting in a manner that will categorize them as socially responsible is important for the brand. Ways to accomplish this perception could be as simple as being transparent about a crisis event or having a little help from a third-party endorsement that is known for providing goodwill to others. Luckily, since nonprofits are typically automatically viewed as having a corporate social responsibility, curating messages and events that resonate with influencers from nonprofits could be another way to gain additional support and build an organization's reputation of being socially responsible. Lastly, I know you may be wondering, why is this so important? Engaging in corporate social responsibility behaviors will bring your organization results down the line. In comparison to other organizations that lacks demonstration of the actions, the organizations that is deemed socially responsible will have far more favor amongst the public. A way to demonstrate corporate social responsibility is by inviting local and state community leaders to help spread awareness about the school system's cutting-edge programs. In this picture, U.S. Representative Rick Allen came to visit the Richland County School System a few months back to see our Cyber Academy. He was able to take the visitation and share the news with others, but most importantly, he was able to advocate for the good things our school system is doing for our community, which is providing unique opportunities to give to students a new jumpstart into their futures. Also, by collaborating with different nonprofit organizations to help fulfill their values, whether it's staff volunteering at a homeless shelter or board members helping to clean up areas throughout Augusta, our school system has a chance at being more favorable amongst others. As an advocate for globalization, I was very happy to delve into additional research about global and international public relations. There has been a lot of growth within public relations, but within the last 2 decades, there has been an emphasis on discovering more about international public relations and its theories as a growing concept. As it grows, it requires professionals to have a better understanding of stakeholders' needs both locally and globally. In addition to understanding characteristics of globalization, there are 3 main factors that contribute to the relationship between globalization and public relations. First, we are in an era that was directly after an era of democratization, when over 120 countries converted into democratic nations. Secondly, during the latter half of the 1900s, we began to see a lot of countries becoming allies in the world of trades, such as NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Lastly, the growth of technology has made connecting to all parts of the world way easier than before. I selected this photo of our students for this slide because they were performing a song about various cultures and continents, which fits perfectly with this entire theme. In regard to the Richland County School System, learning to embrace globalization and creating fun, innovative programs to accomplish it will help our students and staff gain more knowledge and become even more well-rounded individuals. My second recommendation is to provide professional learning opportunities to help our staff have an enhanced understanding of globalization and what it entails. The learning never stops, so another way to accomplish this could be by collaborating with other organizations that have an emphasis on globalization. This will allow us to bridge cultural gaps within our community to achieve even better results. Defining leadership and engagement can be a complicated matter. I have found that as individuals, we each have our definitions of leadership based upon upbringing, prior experiences in professional settings, personal values, or expectations, all of which relatively aligns with research available to the public. While analyzing research topics, I came across 4 main approaches necessary to understand leadership: behavioral, trait, situational, and transformational. Further, supporting my concept that to understand the ins and outs of leadership, you have to perceive it from all approaches. In the case of public relations professionals, leaders must have a vision to communicate, understand media and information systems, and develop and implement strategic communications plans. Nevertheless, I believe that those 3 components are just as necessary for any leader within the school system. Regardless of the field area you are in, leaders must have authentic leadership skills, transparent communication, employee-organization relationships, perceived organizational relationships, and employee engagement to get a full understanding of the value of public relations for an organization. This method would further provide support for better engagement to enhance trust and loyalty amongst leadership, members, and employees. As stated previously, adopted traits of a good leader are always beneficial. Everyone may not be considered a public relations professional like myself, but as any employee of our school system can be viewed as a brand ambassador. and we want to make sure that our ambassadors take initiatives to fulfill their professional and civic duties. Secondly, in an effort to increase morale across the school system, I suggest our current and aspiring leaders to engage more with each other. Sometimes you learn best from your colleagues. Authenticity and transparency are two of the most significant factors for any organization. Like with many of the terms discussed throughout the presentation, the meaning of transparency varies from person to person. But to sum it up, transparency is the opposite of secrecy, allows for better communication and readily available communication at the disposal for the receiver of information. Further, the term is closely associated with integrity, respect, and openness, because without transparency, it is assumed that one is not fully disclosing information, lacking integrity and respect for the person on the other side. Transparency is so important that it has been a recurring term throughout the presentation, which further supports why organizations should do their best to adopt it in all practices. In addition to making more efforts to be transparent, organizations should know their brand and be completely authentic in their dealings with the public. People are more likely to trust an organization and be loyal to a brand that is uniquely themselves. All of our employees, whether they are leaders or bus drivers, represent our school system. And without our employees and their personalities, we aren't authentic. I encourage our leaders to promote authenticity amongst students and staff in the school system. In a world filled with falsified identities, authenticity shines more and is greatly appreciated. My last suggestion is to always incorporate transparency in all practices for our school system. This means be transparent with teachers, staff, students, parents, partners, and other community members. Even when things seem awful, being transparent gains trust. And to have the trust and loyalty of your stakeholders is a way to succeed as an organization, more specifically as a school system. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope that the information was very informative and provided you with insights on how we can make the Richmond County school system even better than it is. I want to leave you with a few reminders and things to consider when moving forward with new strategic plans. First, build up your public relations team to help make everything happen. The field is very broad, and there are many individuals who are able to provide detail, insight, and understanding of a variety of aspects. By consulting with them, the school system has a chance at changing the perception for the better. Keep striving for making better adjustments in terms of transparency, authenticity, leadership, and engagement efforts. If our school system can master those imperative things, we will be able to master the tools used to persuade and gain better results. Lastly, by listening to your stakeholders using social media and collaborating with other organizations, we can bridge a gap between cultures, local communities, and help students and staff become digitally aware of the era that we are in. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing the Richmond County school system grow and achieve new heights. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope